Herb spaghetti sauce is one of the varieties that I like to make with my tomatoes. It's the end of the season, so this is a great one for using up what's left because it uses 32 pounds of tomatoes. I just quarter the tomatoes, and that makes it a little bit easier for them to cook down. The heat gets to them and it lets the juice out a little bit easier. Now, if I have small ones, I might just cut them in half. Or if I decide to throw in a couple of cherry tomatoes, I might not even cut those at all. Now, my sauce will be a little bit different color just because I have some of the different colored tomatoes, but I like variety. And I've also prepped my onions already. For this sauce, I like to do the dicing probably about a medium size. I want to be able to taste the onions separate of everything else, but I don't want it to be so huge that it takes center stage. Now, doing 5 onions like this is kind of a big job, so sometimes it's a good idea to actually put swim goggles on. They're a person's favorite thing to use when it comes to cutting onions. My kids told me about it, and I thought that they were a little silly until I tried it. So now I'll place my tomatoes on the stove and bring them to a simmer for about 20 minutes. What I want is for those tomatoes to be nice and soft in here and ready for the food mill. While the tomatoes are softening, I'll put my 5 onions into a pan. Some of these onions were actually frozen because I ran out midway through the recipe, so I ended up having to pull some out of the freezer. So if they look a little softened already, that would be why. I'll then add 3/4 of a cup of olive oil, 3/4 of a cup of garlic. This garlic smells so good. One of the things that makes this recipe so good, I'm sure. And then 6 tablespoons of butter. And I really recommend going for the real thing. Don't ever go for margarine, it's not good for you. And then I'll put this on the stove and let it simmer for 5 minutes. Now I'll add 3 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of oregano, 2 tablespoons of parsley, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of basil, 1 tablespoon of pepper, and 2 teaspoons of red pepper flakes. I'll stir it and put it back on the stove for 5 more minutes of simmering. I'll then take it off the burner and set it aside for later. With my tomatoes soft, I'll send them through my food mill, and I'll catch the pulp in my husband's honey strainer. I really like this because it has a very coarse strainer and a very fine strainer, and it fits right on top of a bucket, and that's where all of my juice is going to go, which is a lovely byproduct. I'm then able to can the juice, but in addition to that, it makes it so that I just save the pulp for the recipe, and so then there's not the cooking down that there normally would be that usually takes a couple of hours. So now I'll load up my hopper. Now 32 pounds of tomatoes will probably take about 4 fillings of this, but it's so worth it. I mean, if I'm gonna can, I would rather can large amounts at a time. It's almost the same amount of time to do a small amount as to do a big amount. And then this is so great because I get my pulp and my juice come out, which are then separated by my honey strainer, and the juice goes into the bucket, and then my skin and seeds goes into the end. I mean, really, such a great system. At a certain point, this honey strainer reaches pretty much the max of what it can hold. So then I just have to work with it to try to get that liquid down to the bottom. A lot of times, because it has so much more of the pulp below it, that juice doesn't want to go through. It would eventually, but I don't want to sit around and wait. Because this is spaghetti sauce, I actually want it super thick, but I don't really want to spend that time cooking it down. Especially this much. That would take hours, days. I have burned so many spaghetti sauces in my past because I was waiting for it to cook down. And I mean, I have 7 kids, and so there is always something to distract me. Anything I can do that saves time, that's a win situation for me. If you take a look at the skin and seeds, there's actually a fair amount of moisture still in it. Actually, there's a lot of moisture still in it. So I run this through a second time. If you take a look, you can see just how much more pulp there was inside that. Definitely worth the second go round. My pulp is all ready to go. So now I'll add my onion mixture to it. Onions and herbs, you know, all the good stuff. And then I'll put this back on the stove and I'll bring it to a simmer and then set a timer for 20 minutes. The 20 minutes are up and the sauce looks beautiful, nice and thick. If I didn't feel like it was thick enough, I would continue to cook it down. If I felt like it was too thick, then I would just add back more of the juice. But this is perfect, so it's ready to be jarred. I then fill up my jars to 1/2 inch of headspace, which is the space from the top of the food to the top of the jar. But I still need to be able to fit 2 tablespoons of lemon juice into each jar. So I'll stop shy of that, probably at about 1 inch of headspace. Now I'll do my 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in each quart. And that just helps bring the acidity level up to where we need it for the boiling water bath canner. So then I use a clean, damp cloth to clean the rims of all of my jars. If you don't, it can interfere with the seal. I'll then place on all my lids. I'll then apply my rings on, fingertip tight. I'll then place these in my boiling water bath for 40 minutes if I'm at sea level. Since I'm at 1,200 feet, I'll go for 45. Now that it's at a nice rolling boil, I'll set the alarm for 45 minutes. Now that the timer's gone off, I'll remove the lid, turn off the canner, and give it 5 minutes to cool down. I then pull out my jars and I place them on a heat-resistant surface about 1 to 2 inches apart. This allows them to cool down quickly. I'll let them rest for about 24 hours, which gives them a chance to get a good seal. And then I remove the ring and I wash them in hot soapy water. And then I'll store them in a cool, dark place for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. This is my favorite part, the taste testing. I highly recommend that everybody taste test when they do their own canning because everybody's opinions are a little bit different. And so you can figure out like if there's something that you want to change. Okay, so definitely it's like a classic spaghetti sauce, but with more of those herbs to it. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I taste. I taste a little bit of the bite of the onion there, as well as that whole mix of the parsley, the basil, the oregano. Definitely something that would go good on spaghetti, maybe with a little cheese on top. Good.